stripe it or not, I guarantee it. We've got the same problem in roads where they tend to ignore where right of ways are and easements and whatever.
Yeah.
They just want to do what they want.
No, I wanna have it striped, no parking,
Yep.
but,
Yeah, they won't get the message until you actually pull over a few vehicles or ticket them. Then when it starts costing them a few bucks, then you don't get their attention.
but the individual locations where you all owns, they don't really, it's hard to deal with, you have to go up.
They're horrible.
So we're talking to attorneys in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I guess, we can officially call our meeting to order. Are you ready to go, Mark?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have anybody on?
No, nobody on yet, but there was an old meeting link in the calendar invite, but I updated it and resent it. So Mike Miller's just getting it. See? He's pretty
Okay.
smart.
Yeah.
He must be an engineer.
Okay. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. We've got Bill Swift here from Rensselaer. We got Gary Nathan representing both Cohoes and Green Island today. We've got Andrew Goldman from the city of Troy and myself, Bill Simcoe from the city of Albany. So we have a quorum. We've also got Mark Stiglione and Tom White from CDRPC. And we've got Mike Miller from the Albany Board of Education on via Zoom. So welcome everybody, and we take a minute to think of the minutes, and the first order is to review and accept the minutes from March 13th. Anybody find anything that needs to be released?
I would say for project updates for cross streets, the CDM Smith is causing delays in the bidding process. I really think it's, the comments going back to VFC and DEC for that.
Oh, so Cross Street, it's not CDM.
We submitted everything on time, it took a while to get the clarification.
Yeah, that's really review process is what's delayed.
Yeah,
Well, would suggest changing it to the agencies.
yeah.
That works.
Any other changes that we need to? Hey, Chris. Sorry. Chris Powers just joined us from City of Albany, our treasurer. Got a motion to accept the minutes with that modification.
I'll make the motion.
Jerry, second.
Second.
Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Resolution accepted. The financial report from Tom White.
Again, we're about 20% complete of all our against budget, all the projects against budget shipping. We have cash of 77,000 possession that we're higher right now, with the first chunks of that to our fencing. No particular activity, a couple of things from last month, and going along normally. Any questions?
Any questions from anybody on financials? And thank you, Tom, for the vendor invoices. invoice on Van Buren Street. SSS 13. Invoice in regard to engineering on Manor Avenue, SSS 14. And two, the Jesser on Beaver Creek Project, SDC F3. On the docket. I think that's the final invoice on Van Buren Street. I
You're
think
correct.
it shows 0 remaining. So that's all done. I think we've also got those getting processed already, so. Can I have a motion to accept and pay the invoices?
So moved.
Bill,
I'll second.
Gary, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. EFC disbursements and reconciliations, I guess I'll just pointing out to Tom White that all the disbursements that I've collected so far, I've put into the SharePoint, into a folder that's called the EFC disbursements, so for Tom to be able to do, I think we've tried to be passing those along as they're
I think
coming.
I've gotten most of them. I'll check what you put up and make sure I got it.
But as
Is that good practice? I should be sending those over for,
yeah, because that's the basis for Tom to do an invoice.
okay, because I know you put you and Karen on those emails. When I get those, maybe I'll start including or
Yeah,
send you
send
what
it
I
to
have.
me, and then what'll
Okay.
happen is I will match them up to the invoice that have been issued and send out requests for payments to the various communities based on the invoices.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and we had our bi-weekly meetings recently with EFC. We still have to draw down the last 3 million plus on Beaver Creek. And I think at this point, EFC is realizing they need to modify the cost summary to show a greater percentage on Albany's disbursements because the rest are 100% Albany. And the thought of those still show is 58%. So that some of that has to do with how they've allocated the $5 million WQIP money. And some of it's just, they need to show that the rest of it's all Albany, because there's no more disbursements from the other 3 communities that had financing. They've all gone long term.
Right.
And expecting no more disbursements. So that we're trying to get squared away. Plus, there may have been some money withheld on some previous requests that have to be now taken care of. But we really like to close out our refinancing. We do have to keep some of that open until we finish up with the those response testing and the wet weather operating plan, which will take us into next year. But we're trying to pay off a line of credit. We've been kind of in the situation of cows until we can get that money. We're paying interest on on money that we've been borrowing on our line of credit. So, but I think the current stuff we're trying to stay pretty close to as soon as we get. As soon as we get certified pay applications to get those into EOC and get the process rolling, so we'll be more working on a cost incurred basis. And I think for Cahoes, we're trying to get Carter's stuff all, or little C all up and going. So as soon as pay apps start coming in for that, we'll have both the Albany and Troy. And I guess we need Albany, Troy, and Cahoes' grant EFC things all.
Yeah, we still have not received.
You haven't got that executed yet?
No. We're still waiting on either EFC or DEC.
That's
It's
it.
a WIA grant, so it's probably EFC.
Yeah, you should let them know that, hey, they're gonna be pay ups
Yeah.
coming. Was there, where was that? Where was the process for that getting executed? Is there something they needed to submit or?
We had submitted stuff and it's been absolutely silent.
Yeah.
We haven't, we can contact Sharon, on our end, contact DFC to find out what the status is, but yeah, we haven't,
Yeah. I mean, if
it's
it
been
goes,
over a month,
if it
month and a
goes
half.
the way, I don't know if it, because there's multiple financing, I mean, usually EFCs want us to draw down grants before we started drawing down, for, the financings. So. But we is a little bit different.
Yeah,
But if all three of us have actually, I'm not sure exactly how that's working, how much, because it might be we have more than,
well, if I remember right,
I mean, you're only
yeah, we're only and the bid came in at 1,046,000. And our WIA grant is 430,000, if I remember right.
but is that also tied to a percentage, or is it percentage up to that amount?
I forget.
Yeah. So you might want to check, I don't know if that means they're gonna use half of that WIA and half of our WIA before they go into our financing. And then when your thing is done, we get the rest of them, you get the rest of the WIA, and we get the rest of the WIA for that component.
Yeah, I don't know, I was hoping that, before I left, we would have had the stupid grant because we were notified, I don't know, in the fall. And, here we are, so I haven't had a chance to read the grant because I don't have the thing.
Right.
But I know that this time we were not going out for short-term financing. We were gonna use the money coming in from the communities or whatever, so to finance it. So,
Okay. Well, I guess, then the main thing to make sure is that Luisi gets their utilization plan or waiver, or whatever they needed to. So
Carver,
from Carver, we get that, taken care of, so that they're dispersible when they come in. Were they looking for a waiver, or were they gonna get their subs lined up?
my gut feeling is, they'll probably end up going for a waiver. Because little C, I mean. They're subcontracting the building because it's a precast building, and the building is coming equipped with a lot of the equipment already in it, all right? So that's out of their control. The rate equipment and stuff like that actually goes in the regulator, that's coming from a vendor also.
Right.
So of the $1 million,
Yeah.
I don't see them anyway meeting the goal because so much of it's under subcontract work. Now, I'm not the contract, so I haven't seen the latest, and they still had to formalize some of their contracts when we met with some of the subs. So, but when they get some final numbers, that's when I can, or you'll be able to tell exactly what's what, but I find it, if I was a betting man,
Well,
they're gonna have to go for a waiver.
It
probably.
takes a long time with those things, with the waivers. Or it has.
What can I tell you?
And then you
Although
get,
Sharon's been pretty good with, EFC's MWBE group.
oh, maybe, maybe she's got the touch,
Yeah, she has the touch.
Yeah.
She has again, and she has the touch.
Yes.
so.
She does stuff that I haven't seen anybody else.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it in regard to that. Project updates. I guess, Beaver Creek, we're pretty much done with that, construction. We're just into the demonstration of the dose response. We had good tests. This result recently, we actually got close to 3 log reduction.
Oh, wow.
On Ventura, our basis of design was too long reduction
Yeah,
of Intero. But we have very high quantities into, to do that. You know, we're only like 10 parts per million,
oh, wow, okay.
but, anyway, we could potentially back off that a little bit, if that's the case, but that's a reason why we need a year's worth of testing. Because one event to another is gonna be so different.
Yes.
In the combined sewer system, if you got a long time of dry period and then you get a big storm. The characteristics of that are gonna be a lot different than if you have a period of time with a bunch of storms and. It's gonna be. But one thing in regard to the Beaver Creek project is we are having discussions with the county. Because they're having some problems with the sludge. When we clean the contact tanks.
Oh,
So they're doing some composite testing of some of the cleaning of those contact tanks. I mean, they're really ending up being like primary clarifiers. And they're kind of getting that as a batch. So. Yeah, this week we've been cleaning, there are 2 tanks, so we clean one tank one day and another tank another day. They got composite samples and look at it. If they say it kind of messes up their sludge, their drying process with their dewatering and with the burning and stuff in the incinerators, so. We're working with the county on that. Skylar and Liberty, Liberty is that involved in that soccer stadium, so we'll probably talk to DC about trying to put off that deadline, because
who knows?
for the soccer stadium, they're even talking about relocating the county intersection sewer, because it would be running right through the middle of the soccer field.
Oh.
Referrals.
Yeah, there you go.
But and Skylar is on the property of Albany Housing Authority. And Albany Housing Authority is in the process of rehabilitating all these multi-story housing buildings. So we're kind of in discussion with them about speeding up that one.
Right.
Because we want to get done with our disturbance
Right,
while they're going through their
exactly,
rehab of the buildings.
yeah.
So that we're trying to move forward. Then Cross Street is Troy's project that still has to be done. If your sewer lining thing,
Yeah.
what's the status now with that? You have your comments back and taken care of yet?
Yeah, so I talked to Darcy and Greg, we're working on the comments, and I got till April 26th to get them back to DEC, and then we'll start the, review process over again, and then see what they say about that, and then I'm sure there'll be like one more quick back and forth, and then it'll be showtime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that you're expecting that could be pretty quick after the plans and specs are approved.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be, at that point I'm confident that we'll be able to get everything done by the 15th of December. So, mostly just getting some traction that now with City Hall to kind of explain the project and then kind of get that moving, so, I don't think it's gonna be too big of a job, so it shouldn't be that bad, but.
Okay, so Cross Street, we think, even though the award is delayed,
Well, depending on how long it takes to get the comments and, if we
we
get that,
still think that the end date of having a completed project.
yeah, I think that's still reasonable. If hinged on, if, we send this in by April 26th, if we get it back, by the end of May, but if it's in the like. If it takes another, 6 months like it did for this, then there's gonna be a problem, so.
Then Little C's contract was awarded to Carver, so that's moving
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, notice of proceed was issued. Martin's working on the certificate or so that's gotta get signed by everybody. And we're waiting on them to get done negotiating with their subs and come in with, exactly who they're gonna be using, and then they're gonna have to, give us a MWBE plan and probably request.
Now, those, smart. Good.
Yeah, did that have
Well,
any
it's really-
requirements because of our having the dome money?
All those requirements are in the specs and,
Yeah, those are DBE rather than
right,
a MW,
right.
which, I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference, but the paperwork is.
Some of the MWBE firms are not DBE firms, as it turns out,
Yeah,
which kind of surprises me, but it is what it is.
right.
Yeah, and that kind of messes up some of the engineering contracts too, because.
Yeah,
Has anybody heard us, yes, and he's gonna go with DOT's lead on this, having to supply good faith efforts at the time of bid?
I haven't heard anything about that. Have you heard anything about that, Bill?
Well. I think it's a chicken or the egg thing. You can't expect contractors are gonna be able to get any commitments out of subs if they don't know if they're even gonna get a contract.
Right.
DOT's definitely doing it. Albany DOT projects, starting the end of April, they're gonna have to provide good faith effort with the bid.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, the Daily Show's, Jon Stewart has a podcast. And he had this show on the real waste in government. I'll forward it.
but, you're not gonna get good prices then.
No, you're not. You're gonna get a fake price. If they're not gonna spend that much time on it when there's no indication that they're actually gonna have a real contract. They're gonna be going to other MWBEs or DBEs, whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, you'll get a ballpark number that they'll just throw out there. And, yeah, if you get the contract, then come on back to me and I'll give you a real price. But may not bear anything. I mean, that's what I would do.
Right.
Yeah, the question is, when you, put out your bid specs, do you require somebody to show that they've reached out? Because a lot of contractors will just.
Yeah.
Just, figure they're gonna go for the waiver. But it's just a quandary. If you're playing the game of trying to be the low bidder, it's a hard thing to try to figure out.
Yeah.
So, Manor Avenue, you gotta finish up your preliminary engineering.
Right. Right, they were still working, Mike and company were still working on that. There were a few minor things they had to tidy up, and I think by,
Mid-month. That's what it's also.
in mid or late, well, April.
Yeah, they would have reported to.
Okay. So that has a deadline coming up of October for plans and specs, or what was the,
No, it's a year out,
it's a year,
yeah. Yeah, we don't have to be under construction, if I remember, until like 27. So we'll more than meet that day. We just want to get it done.
okay. But you could, apply for some grant money and.
Yeah, yeah, Mike's already on board. We had already, bought that, try to
Yeah,
get the grant money before it gets pulled back.
well, it's associated with the consent order, so maybe that should help get the,
I don't take anything for granted anymore.
yeah. Okay, you gotta be at the trough. And that's the project's updates. The only other thing that we've been talking about in previous meetings is our post-construction compliance monitoring program. And, Mike, are you still with us?
I am.
So. Did you find that, you have the approved plan someplace that we could, just refresh ourselves as to?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely have it, Bill.
I think we wanted to check and see what we might need to do, either with the proposal from the joint venture team, or if we needed to be doing some with our own forces, if we needed to be looking at some sampling equipment and other components so we could participate. Plus, we talked about here whether we could find a boat and a crew to take us around to the various locations.
Yeah, I can send you the plan today, Bill.
Okay. So I think eventually we'll probably want a proposal from the joint venture team in regard to
Or something, we're just not sure what yet.
what the proposed level of participation and cost is gonna be on that. And that's gonna be a cost that's just borne by the communities. We're not gonna have that be eligible for EFC, so something to think about for next year's budget. The other thing that, and I think Chris has something to pass around.
Yeah, I took, what I'll be distributing is a monthly and then, just an annual, budget of the sort of recurring costs at a finished Beaver Creek. Now, it's not, I don't think it's fully ramped up yet. It's kind of been operating for, what, 7, 8 months now, but this is, sort of a best guess for your budgeting purposes going forward, what we think those costs are gonna be, so I can hand these out here. And again, this, it's gonna fluctuate a little bit, but this is what we're guessing kind of right now based on some of the historical operations. And what we think is gonna look like.
I think previously I'd mentioned we might be looking at something like $400,000 a year in costs, but I think this is just part of the equation. Another part is we've talked about needing a new intermunicipal agreement that would sort of like the IMA we have for the long-term control plan. This would be an intermunicipal agreement in regard to payments to Albany for portions of the cost of doing our satellite treatment facility costs. The matrix of responsibility in the existing intermunicipal agreement had all of the satellite treatment facilities as being joint responsibilities. I think Gary and Coase are saying, because you're gonna have passive screening with little c, that perhaps we didn't need to include that in this intermunicipal agreement.
Yeah, what we gotta do is we gotta talk to maybe the county, sewer district. Because they're still, my hope would be, they're still responsible for the actual regulator, which is attached to the structure. So they're literally 30 feet away from one another. So as they're already there cleaning the float mechanisms and the stuff like that for the regulator,
Let's go over to the other one.
just go over the
Yeah.
off the thing and,
Yeah.
and see if the screens are operational. So that's what I'm hoping, but you know, we haven't had a discussion with the county on that. I was gonna bring it up a bit at our next meeting, which should be sometime this month. So I was gonna bring that up at the same time. I was gonna bring up the discussion about them having possible resources to assist us for the next sampling program and see where we are there.
Yeah,
That meeting hasn't happened yet, fortunately.
yeah, and the other thing I asked Mark about just before the meeting was whether we want to engage White and Osterman and Hannah in regard to the drafting of this intermunicipal agreement, since we previously had them as our counsel.
Yep.
we haven't been involved in anything much recently, but, we could provide them with the existing IMA and indicate we propose to use the same share percentages as the original IMA and but you know, we have to work out when payments would be due and just exactly how Albany is documenting the costs. So that well, we wanted to share this with folks so that if you're getting into the process of budgeting soon, that you'd have some numbers to work with.
We can walk through it real quick if you want. The main cost there is we have two full-time employees, one what I would call a foreman and a laborer. And this is a monthly basis, mind you, and there's a little time allocated for engineers and some of Bill's time, but perhaps down the road. And the other biggest piece is the chemicals, as Bill mentioned earlier, that I think we've been using a decent amount of. So these are amounts that are gonna fluctuate. Chemical wise, again, it's people wise, it's really only about 2 people. Day to day. So the rest of it is, you know, there's a decent amount of, you know, there's SCADA technology there, a lot of automated processes that we have to allocate costs for. And you'll see that with North Point and cable, cloud IT, and then the rest of it's sort of just various overhead, insurance and energy costs are high, very high there. And then we also added on, which is part of the agreement Bill mentioned, was the floatables. That there's some maintenance costs there on a monthly basis. That for 3 separate locations, the floatables there. So again, this is an estimate. It's going to fluctuate, but I think it's relatively close. And you can see where we broke out underneath that the apportionate share for each of the communities. So as Bill and I work out how to set up this intermunicipal agreement and figure out the logistics and kind of go from there. The view is would probably I don't see this as a monthly billing. We get billed by the county
6 months.
every 6 months for the use of the both of the sewers
Yeah.
facilities. So we think it's probably going to be probably a 6-month invoice to that effect, but we haven't, you know, we'll get that official when we get the agreement signed.
Yeah. And we have more than 3 locations for our floatables. We have 3 more locations where we've got passive screens. One is at Maiden Lane, the other's at Student Street, and then we put a passive screen at our third half connection to the interceptor sewer. So we weren't planning on having any component of that. It's really just somebody checking those screens after a storm event to make sure that things are okay with those not really.
Then we'll get like an updated sheet of this like annually as, you know, costs fluctuate and.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we haven't had a lot of history to base our budget on yet. Yeah, so when we, as it gets more accurate, we'll do an annual budget or however often you want. We do 6 months too.
Okay. Just something I can provide to my, you know, leadership to kind of explain what's going on.
Yeah, I think we've had other IMAs into some of the debt service things for Rensselaer and hose that we're working on too. I know finances come up, you know, what is this?
We have a lot of inter agreements amongst municipalities of sending, you know, monthly bills here. They have agreements that have been in place for a long time. Yeah, we get these bills like, what is that? Why are we paying late? What's going on here? You know, so
and that's the kind of like the level of confusion I think we have, like.
We have all
the
that
top
too.
level. You know, if I bring this to drop them off and say, hey, we're gonna pay $160,000 a year into eternity they're gonna.
Yeah.
Cause they don't understand the whole,
Yeah,
the pool, you
So
know what I mean? So I just need to be
Yeah.
able to like explain.
I mean, so
Yeah.
Albany really has the bulk of the satellite treatment facilities
Right.
in the plan. Troy didn't have to have any.
Right,
So-
they need the constant upkeep and stuff like that, you know, that are actually like working, living
Yeah.
facilities, not just like passive things we put around and then we just walk away.
So it
So
was
I need to
benefit,
explain all
yeah,
that.
it was a benefit to Troy to not have to. do-
Oh, yeah, that
do
would have been a
photos.
nightmare to go through this. yeah, for us, yeah.
It's because we ultimately share the overall sewer system.
Right.
Right.
Right,
The plant happens
exactly.
to be on our side, so.
I understand all this,
Yeah.
it's getting this information to my people.
And distilled in a way that they can digest.
Exactly, right, at the 10,000 foot level, you know.
Yeah, I guess,
Without going into the active screening and the, deep,
I
chlorination.
think you just tell them,
dechlororation.
we would have had to build a new sewage treatment plant. But all six of us decided to work together to build something in Albany that we're gonna have to pay for.
Right,
I mean, that was really what you would need to do.
and that's in like 1 or 2 sentences, that was like perfect, yeah.
I guess the other aspect of this continued thing is whether this board would have some continued thing after 2027, or it might become something that only met annually or something, that if we had shared costs like post-construction compliance monitoring that went beyond 2027, that we'd still have a body to
Yeah, I look forward to it. I know that sounds crazy, but like once a month. We're getting out of town for an hour,
They don't have
I wanna
dogs to
keep
try?
some, yeah, wanna keep something going, yeah.
Yeah, it's good for it's good for.
Networking.
Yeah, certainly to, meet up with all the folks.
We may not have a choice.
I have a suspicion that when all is said and done, we're gonna end up with another long-term control plan.
Yes.
And we're gonna do.
That thing even longer.
Where the monitoring results come back and be like, you're terrible, and then we'll be back here in 3 years sitting.
Yeah.
With a whole new list of project items.
Yeah, depending on how that first first post-construction compliance monitoring plan goes in next year.
Right,
Uh,
once we start getting some results.
it's but 1 year's testing doesn't really tell you the story.
It depends upon Mother Nature. Lately, she's been a little angry, and I think she's gonna get angrier, so.
Right. Yeah,
So
It's possible to get inconsistency in the test. We don't get consistency.
if it's a drought year or if it's a
Gary.
wet year,
There was an executive order signed that says climate change is not happening. No, let's get real here.
Yes.
okay. We need executive orders to say there'll be no more emergencies.
right,
Well, we have a quarterly meeting with DC, so we can talk about these updates with them and find out if there's anything from their end that we need to be doing. But I think we're on a good stead with DC with our monitoring.
We've done most of the work in the consent order already. Everything, we come in probably under budget for most of them. Thanks also to grants, but I mean, at the end of the day, everything seems to be operating. We're ahead of schedule, and net, we're below budget. I mean, to me, that's a win-win.
Yeah, they've been wanting to tour our facilities and show them off, and so I think
We're doing a lot better than a lot of the other, even larger communities that have got long-term control plans.
and so we're lucky.
Maybe you should take your leadership down to the Beaver Creek facility.
that's a really good idea, yeah. You see that and then it's, okay, now I get it. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's not some little
no,
thing.
no, I remember, looking at all the, pictures and stuff over the past couple years, wow, this is an impressive project.
Yeah,
Well, even just Beaver Creek, never mind a long-term control plan, that from a relative outside position being here for a year, what a tremendous thing to have to take on
Yeah,
for a 99,000 person population, 22,000 meters paying,
right,
even with the grants, even with the finance.
yeah.
We borrowed a tremendous amount of money to get even net to get that done.
Yeah,
I hope it gets that kind of recognition, what Bill and you guys had to go through
yeah,
to make that happen, but hopefully there's no more consent orders to that level.
well, just to give you a warning,
Mm.
there's gonna be an article on the project in the Clearwater coming up in spring. So maybe we just,
The positive
Okay.
article? A positive article?
I wrote it.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So it might be
That makes me feel better.
Question still standing.
Project will be featured in the Clearwater publication company. So, is there anything else that we needed to, I see other business, we've got certificate of compliance for Cross Street. Um, So that, did we have something that we're issuing as non-compliance, or did that only go in, did we really sign something on that? Or we sent in this letter asking for,
Yeah, the only thing this is,
yeah, in your packet,
Martin and I's collaboration
yeah, the mayor,
that I sent out
yeah,
to the Ryan and then the other Devani and a couple other folks that he recommended. So,
yeah. Did we still need to send our standard compliance thing?
I guess we'll have to ask, we can ask them this afternoon. Not clear to me.
yeah, I don't know.
Did they respond at all to the letter?
Liam, you folks met Liam? Okay, so Liam emailed me yesterday and he's like, I heard that you started construction. I just want to make sure you didn't start construction. I said, you don't have to worry about that. We've not started the construction. And that was it. Yeah. Like, we don't move that quickly here in the city of Detroit. You don't send a letter on the 31st and we decide we're just, got somebody on board, we're digging it up. Yeah, no, so.
Okay, well, if we need to do something with the 6 communities signing, we'll find out this afternoon and circulate something.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And other than that, before we adjourn, is there anything else?
I don't think so.
We have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion.
Andrew, second,
I'll second.
Gary, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?